Good morning, folks. And today we have a talk by someone I know she gets embarrassed when I do these things and say, we have a talk by Dr. Patsy Staddon. So there. And Patsy will talk this morning, which is called Once an Alcoholic, Always an Alcoholic, Changing Stereotypes, and in praise of social learning. Patsy.
Thank you. It's a very long-winded title. You'll be happy, David, to learn that I have now got a shorter title, which you will be able to use.
Right.
Um, I want to go into the first Zoom screen and then keep you sitting looking at it. You see, I was perhaps stupidly trying something different because what I'm doing today is really very informal and it isn't the sort of thing I would normally labor you with an attached presentation of. But then when I printed it off and I've got it in front of me on the wall. So I was going to do it just as, reminders for me while I was talking. Then I realised, though, that there are two or three figures that, percentages particularly, that people who are interested in this might well want the reference for. So,
Thank you.
so it will be available. I will attach it at some. What David can tell me when. So there will be an attachment, but I didn't want to use the attachment to talk from, if I made sense. And if you can see me, you'll also have to put up with my glasses going on and off because I can see my notes on the wall best without my glasses, but I can see you people best with them. Um, okay. So that is a very aggressive title. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. It's aggressive from two points of view, really. It's a heck of an assumption for anybody to make about anybody. Um, but it's also, at least traditionally, it's been a heck of an assumption to question it because
Yeah.
so many people in the population, when somebody that they know has had a problem with their drinking, does something stupid or unexpected or weird, they say, oh, well, if they're being a bit unkind, they'll say, well, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic.
Oh,
And they will be remembering all the things that they have heard that alcoholics are like. I would suggest that would include, I'm looking back at my own period of being an alcoholic, which was about roughly 20 years, um, completely irrational, unreliable, could say anything at any time, in all sincerity, but not recognize it the next day. Make up fantasies without even realizing that they were fantasies, promise people to do things and totally forget them, or try to do them late, making a heck of a mess. Um, Getting into a massive mess with money, even sometimes for some of us have gone so far as to steal money from either from strangers or from people who are close to us. All those really very terrible things will have been commonplace while we were hooked on drinking. And because they're horrible, people like to not talk about them too much. But I think that's what happens when your brain gets skewed, whether it's by alcohol or by something else. So that's why it's very easy to come up with a statement like, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, and you will find countless examples for yourself anytime in the life of anybody who's had a drink problem. But it isn't really helpful. This is my opinion, okay? So I have done academic research in the area, but a lot of other people have done academic research in the area too, and we don't all agree, which won't surprise you. Um, so I'm not actually speaking as an academic at the moment. I'm talking to you as somebody who wrecked her life, really. I couldn't seem to get off drinking for 20 years, and I kept trying. It wasn't, I thought, this is fun, great stuff, you know. Um, it was terrible. I lost my home and my husband and my children, and job after job. Um, and I ended up literally sleeping on the streets, or actually usually in the corridors of BRI, with a bag. So that's where I ended up. But I did get out of it, and I do feel very strongly because I got out of it, and I have now been dry since November 1988. I do feel quite strongly about once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But the thing is, there is some truth in most of these things. So the way that I would say there is a grain of truth in that is that there is a kind of way of looking at life and experiencing life that can be part of your life as when you are being an alcoholic, and which, if you're not careful, stays like that when you're years away from relying on substances. It can still be your tendency, um, perhaps to rely too much on one thing. I don't mean a substance, I mean a way of living. Um, for years, I was really hooked on ice cream. Don't laugh. I mean, I used to eat a tub. Um, it could be things, nothing to do with things you put in your mouth. It could be ways of behaving. It could be dependence on another person. All these things you needed to watch out for. Recovery, in my experience, and that of most people I have talked to in my research and in my life, recovery is a long, complicated process. I would say it was a good 15 years of not drinking alcohol and living in a very different way. I would say it was a good 15 years before I felt able to look a bit outside the box at what alcohol dependence actually meant and how it affected life. And I'm only now, after what is it? I should have worked this out before I spoke, 38 years, I don't know, that I'm beginning to realize with horror what it did to other people. And I'm glad I didn't get to this stage before now because I don't think I could have coped with the distress. I dare say I would have done. Anyway, so going back to the last bit of once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, I think the problem is that with all good intent, most of the 12-step groups do genuinely believe that alcohol dependence is permanent. They do accept that you can have bouts of sobriety. An example in my life is that after I first left my family, my husband gave me the opportunity to return, and I did return, and I lived with them without a drink for 2 years. And then I did what AA calls a slip, and then it took me 20 years to get out again. So bouts of sobriety, these people, the 12-step people, do believe in you can have that, but that's not recovery. They would never say recovered, which I do say after 38 years. But I used to find I did try to use that program. I really did. In that 20 years when I was failing to recover, but trying. I certainly did use 12-step programs and the people, jolly nice people I met, very helpful. But I just got so depressed. I would listen to the stories of other people's terrible slides, the wreckage of their lives. And I'm sure I was doing it wrong, but I used to go home via the off license. So it would take me down a step, even though it was good to talk to some of the people there. So there were good things, but for me, it wasn't my best way forward. I know that it is for some people. For some people, it's their safe place, and I have a friend who has been dry almost as long as me, and he swears by AA. So, that's fine. I know it works for some people, but it doesn't work for us all. For one thing, this statement is not true, and this is where I've got you a few figures. Um, I'm going to get this wrong. It's the NIAA. It's the National Institute of Alcohol. Oh, abuse. I hate that word. Alcohol abuse. NIAA. They say that between 36% and 70% of people do achieve lasting recovery. So you'll get that when I send you the presentation, so called. You will have the opportunity to look that up. There's also natural recovery. Some people just get over it without treatment. I have talked to people for whom that's happened. Who knows what will happen in the future? AA people will say, I must agree. None of us know what's going to happen in the future. But some people do appear to just get over it. Perhaps their life changes in some important way, or maybe lots of small ways. It's also nowadays possible to be given drugs, which do apparently, I haven't used any, and I haven't researched people who've used them, but I read that they do reduce craving in some people. And one thing I would say, and I've said a bit about this just now, it's really important to keep it at the back of your mind as a reminder. This business about once an alcoholic, I hate that word, but it is useful to remember that some habits which you acquire in alcohol dependence, they tend to be a bit part of you, very difficult to get rid of. Your lifestyle. You have to keep an eye on your lifestyle. Is it still what a lifestyle you want? Are you happy and content? Are your close people, whoever they are now, are they happy and content? Are you have you got good relationships and good friendships? Is anything the matter? Are you able to talk freely to at least one other person about how things are going? If you can do all that, I don't think you need to worry. But if you can't, but those are things which I believe Alcoholics Anonymous tries to offer to its members, but they are also available outside Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm going to talk in a minute about how they can be available without worrying about a 12-step program. There are going to be overlaps with that program.
Patsy,
Yes. Yeah.
Patty,
Yeah.
uh, please could you say the last of these questions to ask yourself? I got are your friends content with or in your friendship? And
Yeah.
then you said something else.
You need, I'm not sure. I'm not reading exactly from the script, you see. So,
I
um,
I would like it if you
Yeah,
actually repeated all the questions.
yeah,
yeah,
they're very
the statement of the Alcoholics Anonymous statement, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic, the useful things in it. Is that
oh,
that one? Um,
The
yeah, you said
questions to
there's some
ask
habits.
yourself. The questions to ask yourself.
Questions to ask yourself. Yes, yeah. Um, how is your life going? Are you happy? Really happy? Have you got friendships? Are your friends happy? Are there things you need to change? Are there things you're worried about and you feel you can't change? Have you got people, or at least one person, with whom you can talk really honestly about how your life is going? Are you looking after yourself in every way? Those are the kind of things that you always need to watch out for, because while you were relying on a substance, you will have been neglecting at least usually all of them, but you will certainly have been neglecting some of them, and it can become a bad habit. I can give you an example of that I laughingly said about my ice cream, but it wasn't just ice cream. It's taken me years to work out how to look after myself properly, like a normal human being. Meals. Am I balancing what I eat? Am I taking the right exercise? Am I looking after myself? Because when you're using substances, at least some of those ways of looking after yourself will fall by the wayside. And you've got to make sure that you don't fall back into those habits. Does that cover it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I can
So,
see friends doing it. Yeah.
yeah.
Patsy, do you have those on slides as well?
Yes, yes.
You could skip to the next slide with and show those slides on the screen.
Oh, tell me how, but
Well,
so
click,
it's the
click,
first three slides, that is. So what should I do?
well,
Um,
click on the slide show and whatever you need to do,
oh, all
click on
right.
the cursor or something to move to the next slide. Whatever you normally do. There you go.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first one about the 12-step groups and what they do achieve and what I didn't mention the third that a problem I found such a lot in the AA groups I tried. And it's not because of AA, it's because of people, the 13th stepping, which is two people who are trying to recover. And because they meet up in these groups, they they get together as a couple and it sounds great, but then one of them starts drinking and blow me, the other one starts. And it happened so often. And that was, it's just something that happens. It's about people. So that was my first slide. And then my it's my second, actually. Yeah, well, anyway, there isn't one before that. And then there's this one, where I've got a couple of figures. Um, the NIAA, the National, I always forget it, National Institute of Alcohol Abuse. That's their figure. Um, Lasting recovery, they mean for a few years. Um, okay, so can I go back to the first one now? Is that all right? I'm going to attach this later on, so you will have the opportunity to read it later. Is that all right,
Well,
Okay.
David?
what you mean is we'll put the slides in the description under the video so people can click on that and
Yeah, is that all right?
yeah, that's good. But
Okay.
good to show them as well while you're talking.
Oh, is it? I always find, yeah, I mean, there are conflicting opinions on this. I mean, some people think that other people, that the participants read the slide and they don't listen, which is why I thought I'm trying this out for the first time for that reason, But if, well, those people present, can you raise your hand so David can see you? Those people who would like to see the slides as we go along.
It's
David, how
it's
many?
it makes once you've got them on the screen, it makes sense to be showing them rather
Okay.
than just show the first slide.
Okay. All
Or
right then.
And Patsy, you've laid
Yeah.
them out so well that you haven't put too much on one slide to digest. So thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Well, I'm afraid they get a little bit, there's a bit more on the ones to come, but I'll do my best. Okay. So I call it leaving the way that you leave, or you can. This is a way to leave alcohol dependence behind. Um, I mean, what's certainly true is that your way of life has to change. There's no two ways about that. Some people do manage to do controlled drinking. I haven't known one well. I don't mean they haven't done it well. I mean we haven't stayed friends. The people I know who have had proper alcohol dependence, serious alcohol dependence, I don't know any that have managed to drink like other people. We've all had to just give the stuff up.
Yep.
Not because there isn't, as far as I know, I don't know that there's a chemical reason for that. It's just easier. The
Uh,
big thing is to give it up, but after that, it's actually easier not to have it around worrying you all the time. Um, one of my best friends still drinks, and when she comes round here for a meal, um, I get a bottle of wine in. She drinks what she wants to drink of it, and then she takes it home. Not because I would drink it if it stayed here, but because it makes me feel uncomfortable. And that's all I can say. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I go to pubs. I meet up with a lot of other lesbian women, and it's usually in a pub, and I just drink Diet Coke, and that doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. But of course, most of my serious drinking I did alone at home. So for me, what is nasty is an unfinished bottle of alcohol. A done-up bottle of alcohol, I'm not so bothered about, but I don't like the open ones. I just don't like it. Anyway, um, it's a journey of discovery. You are finding yourself. It's quite amazing how little you know about yourself. If you've been hiding behind a duvet of alcohol for many years, you don't know who you are. You haven't a clue. You think you do. You can remember things that you knew about yourself before, and there'll be a few fragments from, in my case, the 20 years that you're still holding on to. Um, but really, everything's new. Like Good Samaritans, I mean, you need people who keep faith in you and will talk to you and be encouraging. Um, I had two such people who were absolutely brilliant. They're still my best friends. Um, it helped me that at the time, they weren't using alcohol at all. And that was really helpful. We used to go clubbing together and we were all three drinking Diet Coke. And yes, that was really helpful. It was a small thing. It sounds a small thing now, but it was a big thing then to be able to go in the pub, order a drink, look like everybody else. It might not bother everybody in the same way, but they were non-judgmental. Um, perhaps it wouldn't have been the same if they'd been family members. My family had suffered immensely. They really, really had suffered immensely. That is not an exaggeration. So that although I gleefully rang them after a few months of not drinking and said, I stopped drinking. I was so happy. I wanted them to know. But of course, you see, I had been trying to stop drinking over 20 years. For them, it was nothing new to have Patsy on the phone saying, I've stopped drinking. So there was a kind, tired, oh, that's good, mummy, or that's good, Patsy. Um, but it didn't mean a thing, and of course it didn't. It takes years and years before people believe you. And anyway, if you belong to this once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic relationship idea, you're always suspicious, and maybe you're right. How can I prove that's wrong? It was really important to me to be able to build up a circle of friends to whom drinking just wasn't important. It didn't matter if they had a drink, but it did matter if their whole life centered on it. Um, would I have dinner parties? Well, I can't call them parties. I don't have more than a couple of people at most. But yes, there's wine on the table, but these dinner parties, we're talking about a couple of times a year. My life does not center on things that involve alcohol. I don't know if it would be a problem or not. I only go to the lesbian events, ditto, about twice a year where there's alcohol. When we have our social discussion groups, we drink tea and coffee. That's in people's homes. So again, it just doesn't happen. So I've widened my social circle, but it's not really, drinking isn't really around much. So that makes it much easier for me, I suppose. And but it's just plain. I'd like to say it went away because it felt like the need to drink went away. And of course, it wasn't that simple, but it felt like that. It's just plain felt like it went. So there's one of the things that I found, and this wasn't for me, while I was doing my research into women's drinking, was that so many of them, they were in a relationship in their family which was simply not conducive to stopping drinking because the partner was not prepared to stop drinking. And consequently, that partly drunk bottle of alcohol was always around, and it troubled them. At best, it troubled them. At worst, they drank it. But there were other phases in between, between it bothering them and them drinking it. They often had to move home. There was also a terrific amount of abuse involved because alcohol frees up your feelings. People get angry often, and there are often fights, and men particularly are bigger and stronger than women. All in all, there was an awful lot of occasions I found in my alcohol research where women had had to leave home and start absolutely all over again. I'd already left home, of course. I hadn't got home. I was camping. If these friends hadn't taken me in and eventually helped me to get safe housing, I don't know where I would have been. I was one of the people who was lucky. I should move on quickly. I've noticed the time. Sorry. So, so what I call social learning, and these are things which, when we were doing women's independent alcohol abuse, which I'm onto it now, which we ran for 7 years in Bristol. We came up with all these things. They were suggestions from different women we were working with, and we put them together. I've actually got them listed quite formally somewhere if somebody wants it. Physical activity really helps. Getting tired, getting physically tired, getting out there, breathing fresh air. Even housework helps. Going for a walk helps a lot. If you're not at that stage, though, just texting somebody, ringing somebody up. Anybody will do, actually. A friend is good, but anybody, anything that stops you going over there and pouring that drink. Anybody that will perhaps come round and help you empty the bottle down the drain and go with you to meet up with somebody. It helps to find a lot of healthier coping mechanism and sort of reset your habits. I mean, something that really helped me, there was the first thing that helped me most was talking to these two women who did so much to help me. Oh, I've forgotten to move on, I beg your pardon. What helped me was just plain talking to them. They were terrific. They talked to me for hours, including in the night, and they had to go to work, which I didn't. Um, so talking to people really made a difference. And then what helped a lot was taking up physical stuff. What I did was aerobics. I went every day. Typical, we'll say, alcoholic behavior. I went every day. I got very fit, and I really enjoyed it. And it did give me a lift. It made me feel physically a lot better. And I also joined a kind of daytime treatment program, um, and that involved getting on a bike and cycling up to Clifton and down again. So that really helped physically. And the friends I met there were good as well. So again, it was widening the social circle. I think that's really important, meeting more people and talking to them. It's getting used to a different way of living. I put on that slide may not include abstinence. I really think abstinence is actually, unbelievably though it seems at the time, it's easier if you actually stop, get rid of the bottles. It does actually help. But, you know, some people find the way they do it is they limit it to, I'll only have a drink after this time of day. I'll only have a drink with a friend. I'll only have, you know, they do that and that helps them. But I found it was abstinence that, for me, that was the key, but not shutting myself away from other people, because being with other people is really important. And it is a challenging process. But, you know, in the process, you see, I've said here, there's no research out that affirms what I'm saying. It's a cognitive process. Your brain gets different. But the way I think now is quite different from the way I thought 30 odd years ago. Now I know we all do. You get older. But I can't possibly tell how much of it is getting older. But when I hear from kind friends who were around, mainly family, of some of the unbelievable things I did when I was drinking, it is unrecognizable. I cannot believe that that's me. But I don't think they're making it up. So yeah, I am a new identity. I wouldn't dream of stealing someone's money. I wouldn't dream about exaggerating something about somebody and then ringing up all their friends and telling them. I have done both those things. And to me now, they're unbelievable. But I did do them, and I would literally rather die than do them now. So there is real change that takes place. And also, which is great, you know, in the end, alcohol is just not so interesting. So I'm going to have to speed up a bit because I've got two more slides. And I wanted to say why people do it, in case, you know, why they drink it in a dependent way. It gives them time out. I'm still in touch with people who are still drinking, although not you know, not as in an official capacity. And it gives them permission to collapse, to feel how bad, how depressed they are. It gives them permission to be somebody that their life in general isn't giving them. Sometimes it actually helps them to misbehave, to do something that they wouldn't normally do. I don't know, maybe throw some paint at the wall or something. Um, and then also there is pleasure for some of us, dare I say, particularly gay people, in being seen as dissident. It's quite nice to go out in a special T-shirt waving a flag saying, I'm gay. It's quite good to do that. It can be quite rewarding. It can make you feel much better, more of a person. So that dissidence can also extend to the what is usually called the misuse of alcohol. And some people also find it helps them work out who they are. I've talked to trans people, particularly, that they have found it easier in their search for where they actually wanted to be situated, where they were. I think sometimes it kind of moves around this authenticity. Alcohol and other substances can be helpful with that. Of course, it's especially seen as deviant for women. And it's also true that most women with mental health issues of all sorts will self-medicate, no wonder. Not much available elsewhere sometimes. And alcohol is one of the ways that they self-medicate, not always recognized when they go for treatment. So this is what I mean when I say a social prescription. The women that worked with us in Women's Independent Alcohol Support, these are some of the methods that help them. This was before I retired, so by now I'm hoping there are lots more things that women are doing. I think they probably are. It was finding other ways of making themselves feel happy. Sometimes it even meant they had to move home. That's the hardest thing, but they often did need to do that. They needed to change their friendship group. Terribly difficult, but doable. And the more different activities you take up, the easier that becomes. It gets easier with time. If you can just hang on in there, hang on to the bit of success you've got, it gets easier. It's easier now also socially because there is a much wider range of alcohol-free drinks. If you want to go or need to go into a pub, it's easy, or indeed the supermarket, a good range of alcohol-free drinks which don't look all that different, if that worries you, from the ones that other people are drinking. Also, nowadays, it's so much more acceptable than when I stopped drinking not to choose to drink alcohol. I mean, there's the driving thing for one, but also, and this is really encouraging, more young people now do not choose to drink alcohol. I got some figures here. The health survey a year ago. 39% young men and 31% young women are actually non-drinkers. And I think this is really positive. I mean, okay, yes, it means the problem is mainly with men and women in middle age, but we've got some ideas about how we might be able to deal with that. At least it looks as if it's possible that the future in that respect might be healthier. I don't know. Anyway, that's all the slides that I've got. So I guess I could stop here. How do I get back into a normal position?
Okay, I think up at the top of the screen, you've got
Yeah,
a little bar, and somewhere in that little bar, it's got stop sharing.
it's got share. Um, it hasn't actually got stop share anywhere yet.
Well, it
I,
might,
I, I might be able to.
the share might stop sharing.
I can't seem to get rid of it. Ah, no, I haven't got rid of it. I haven't got rid of it. Um, oh dear, sorry.
When you click on your own slides, there should
Yeah.
still be a little residual bit of Zoom, possibly at the top of the screen, which includes an option to stop sharing.
Oh yes. Oh no, it doesn't say. Oh, that glasses are back on. Right. Uh, no, it's only got share. There's more. I'll see if that goes.
It will be on the same bar as more, but it
No,
won't.
there's no. Honestly, it doesn't. It says audio, video, participants, chat, share, polls,
Well,
layout.
click on
Oh, I got
share.
it. I got it. I got it. I got it. It came up underneath. It cheated me. Um,
There you go.
right. Phew. Okay. What would
Hello,
anyone like to ask any questions?
I'm sure. Marianne.
Um,
Yes. Oh,
okay.
yes.
I just remembering back to my probation days. I worked in Southmead, and the way the estate was laid out was that there was a pub at each corner,
Hmm.
with practically zero other facilities. So it was actually quite difficult to suggest to young men who very
Yes.
often didn't want to. I think they felt safe anywhere else. If you
Yeah.
sort of said
Yeah.
to them,
Hmm.
"Oh, look, there's a job in Clifton," they would say, "Where's that to then?"
Yeah.
Well, I ain't going there.
Hmm.
So the only places they tended to know was Southmead itself and the centre of town.
Hmm. Yeah.
And all their social relationships were through alcohol. So
Yeah.
it was, there weren't many prepared to contemplate AA. There were one or two, but mostly it was about helping them to cut down and to find other ways of socializing. But it was really
Yeah.
difficult because the context didn't offer much.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't know if that was a problem for you or is a problem for lots of other people.
Well, it was very similar for me as you see, times have changed a lot. So we're talking about the end of the 80s, and the place that lesbian women congregated were pubs. That was it, pubs and clubs. That was where you met your friends. So there were similarities. Um, there were also some groups in women's homes, but most socializing was done in pubs. So it was very important to have a way of using that facility. You either shut yourself away from those groups or you found a way of managing with them. And I think if the group was one which felt unhappy if you didn't drink alcohol too, I think you had a problem. In fact, I don't see how you would get past that, to be honest. But I didn't find that. I didn't find anyone persuaded me to have alcohol. But then they probably didn't realize I was drinking other things. I was drinking Diet Coke mainly. Um, that is a bit more difficult, I would think, in some cultures where it's normal to buy rounds.
Mm.
That's why I think it helped a lot when they came in with don't drink and drive. Um, so my advice to a young man then would be quick, get a car. Uh, or and for that matter, a motorbike, get wheels, get some reason other than, oh, I'm an alcoholic, I can't drink that. Oh, sorry, mate, I've got to get on my bike. Sorry, mate. Some reason which goes down well with whatever group it is you're mixing with. I mean, and because I didn't experience it, I can only really guess at what would help young men in that position subsequently. I mean, it might be fine. They might be able to continue, keep that friendship group, and still develop as a person. But the point is, they do need to develop as a person because, unlike some of their friends, they've become dependent on it. So they do actually have to think what they're going to replace, what it was in their life that they were getting out of alcohol. And they're probably not going to find that in the pub. So they're going to have to do, I mean, I really can't over recommend, sports facilities. They really, really, really make a difference, improving your physical health. And for young men, particularly, you can gain status by being really fit, being really good at some form of sport, taking up something of that sort, even if it's kicking a football in the street. You can build up your status and that's one way you can do it. And if, like me, you're hopeless at sport anyway, at least you can go to the gym and climb ropes and pull. It's amazing what you find you can you can do. Um, so that's what I'd recommend to young men that I think would help. See what you can do in the way of taking up sport, which will mean that you've got an excuse not to drink alcohol if you still want to go to the pub, but you will also meet a different friendship group as well. So you might find you don't spend so much time down the pub anyway because you're busy doing other things. I haven't said anything about spiritual life. Um, I have, through my whole life, including while I was drinking, I was always in the same way that I was climbing on and off the wagon with alcohol. I kept trying, I really did, but I could never make it until 1988. But I was doing the same with God. I kept trying to have to set up a relationship with God. I did so with preparing to be a Catholic. I did so with various other religious groups. Um, and every time I felt terrible and I would let them down with my drinking and I felt bad about it, even when they were kind to me about it, it was still awful and it damaged how I felt about my relationship with God. I guess I had the wrong people supporting me, or maybe they didn't understand any more than I did. I didn't know why I kept on doing it. I don't know to this day. I've only got some ideas. I don't know for sure. Um, but anyway, so it's always felt to me as if spiritually, it's embarrassing to say this, but it feels to me rather, it felt to me as if someone reached out and touched me because I had been really ill in alcohol recovery in a friend's house the night before, November the 16th, 1988. Um, and I came round in the morning and I just thought, I've had enough. I've had enough. And the thing is, I had thought that before, you see, all these times I tried to stop. So that's why I use that expression. It feels as if somebody must have reached out and given me a hand. But nothing changed that I know of that hadn't changed before. But I haven't just never had a drink since. I never wanted one. That's why I've always felt guilty when people say, "Oh, well done," because it's not really well done when you don't want it. Um, I mean, what's been well done is building myself into a decent human being, which I wasn't being. Building myself up into being a good friend and attempting to be a good, rather too late parent. Um, Building a relationship, I hope, with God. But all those things have come slowly. They did not just happen. When I stopped drinking, that was where I had to start. But that was the start of a long journey. And it was 15 years before I realized I was having a long journey. Do you know what I mean? Which is a long time. Sorry, I've gone on talking too long and I haven't given you a chance to ask any more questions. I'm so sorry.
That's just more of an example than a question, really, because you were saying about meeting your gay friends, in bars and pubs and things like this. I had an uncle whose son was drunk in enormous amount, and he was young in his 20s or something like this. And the reason he drank, it was found out later, according to my uncle,
Mm.
that he was drinking because he was gay and he didn't want to be. And the whole his whole emotional life was built around this kind of I'm a man, kind of
Yeah.
nearly egotistical type of things like that.
Yeah.
And he, had to have, he went to a counsellor and the counsellor, and all this lot, and accepted the fact. And my uncle said, he is now quite happy in his lot, and he has stopped drinking because the drinking was the thing which covered up this idea of something that he didn't want to be.
Yeah.
Interesting
Yeah.
thought, I
Yeah.
thought, but
Yeah. It's interesting. I think things have improved in that respect. I mean, we were when I mean, I'd realised that I don't know what to call myself. I usually do call myself lesbian. If I were much younger, I would say I was intersex, a word I hadn't heard of in those days, because I was perfectly happy in being married to a man. That was not an unhappy relationship, sexually or in other respects. Um, but parts of me really aren't like that. Parts of me are different, and those parts didn't have a place to go. Um, Whereas now I have many places to go, and my life is easier. And I think, well, it's easy actually, but I talk to younger people, and I think it's helpful for them to hear about the idea that I think it's hard for them to know that you can have feelings, which can be sexual feelings, towards some of us, I better say, some of us can have sexual feelings towards the other sex, but we can also have them to other women. But we can also, at different times in our life, I would suggest, focus more on certain aspects of our sexuality. That's only a suggestion. I've not researched it. Um, and not enough people talk about it, which is a pity. Um,
Hmm.
I'm I'm learning a lot from Facebook and various groups online. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Patsy, I wondered if if I explained something that happened when we were down in South Africa, and maybe your experience would be able to provide some advice. So we were down in South Africa on our way to Claire's family farm, which is in the middle of a semi-desert in the Karoo, so it's 30 miles away from a nearest town or anything like that. And on the farm is a very small village of four houses, which are inhabited by people who either work on the farm or did work on the farm. So there was one man who worked full time and two women that worked part time. And they as a community tend to drink very, very heavily at the weekend. And
Mm.
this particular weekend before we arrived, um, they had invited some people from another farm over for a party. And on the Saturday night, they drank very, very heavily. And as you intimated, it erupted into some sort of violence where somebody from another farm got into an argument with the only person's now still working on the family farm. He, who's a wonderful guy called Jerry, fantastic worker, decided that he ought to get out of the way, so he started retreating. The other man, followed him with a knife, stabbed him in the back, and then cut his carotid artery, and he was dead within about a few seconds. Now, this leaves behind a woman who's a very heavy drinker and three children. Two of them have got, I don't know, that sort of alcohol syndrome. In other words, their brains have been affected by their mother drinking so heavily
Yeah.
that they can't hold a memory, so
Yeah.
they will never be able to have a job. And there is a younger girl of about 13 who's doing all right at school. Not badly, I should say, but she's missing certain days. What is the best thing that the family can do to support that? Because clearly, they're not well off. The main bread winner is now away. But if you provided cash to the mother, there's a very high probability she would misuse it.
Well, what I'm doing at the moment is I have a close friend who's developed an alcohol problem,
Mm,
and I am cooking for her 2 or 3 times a week. I hate cooking, but I eat salad. I live on salad, and but I'm now cooking for her, and I think so. One of the things I recommend is socializing with a meal. Um, which I wouldn't be well, I wouldn't be presenting alcohol. I mean, with this friend, I'm trying her out on ginger beer. Um, it's got something of the dryness and sparkle of, it's not the same. She doesn't like it as much, but that's I'm trying out. Um, so I think that the socializing with a meal is very helpful. People get more out of sharing meals there's much more to it than the food. I don't understand that, but this is my experience that
mm,
sharing meals helps. So if that were possible, it would also help, I guess, financially if other family members could support
mm,
by, starting the food a bit
mm,
themselves. Um, because making food is quite hard work. So if somebody comes along with most of the work done,
mm,
that is really helpful. There's no
mm,
doubt about it. And there's a sense of occasion,
mm,
which also gives pleasure,
mm,
and it's something to look forward to.
mm,
If you wanted, you could even have I don't know if sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work, to have a rule whereby you could only come if you hadn't had a drink. That would be hopeless for some people.
mm,
Some people do well with rules.
mm,
I think a lot of people in AA do well with rules.
mm,
Some people do not.
mm,
So it's just something you'd have to try, and see how things worked
mm,
out. But I think that's what I'd be thinking. See what aspects of your life you could share
mm,
that would broaden out their lives so they were less concentrated on that way
Mm.
of getting relief
Mm.
from circumstance and feelings. And it's a lot of input that's needed, really. And
Mm.
and also people do get worn out. I'm feeling a bit worn out already. I haven't been doing it long. It's tiring, looking out for somebody else with an alcohol issue. It's tiring. It's a darn sight easier doing research, I can tell you that. Um, but you have to do your best, don't you? But I don't know if there's anything else. I think that's the thing that comes most readily to mind. More
Mm.
more sharing,
Mm.
um, and kindness.
Mm.
Trying not to show
Mm.
when you're really fed up.
Mm. Okay,
Um,
that's very kind and very thoughtful. I mean, and my takeaway from that was actually the one about sharing is interesting, particularly around the daughter, the 13-year-old daughter,
mm.
and what you might be able to give her a glimpse of another way of living. And we've
Yes,
been thinking
yes,
of doing the support to her via the school, in other words, paying her school fees and those sort of things.
yes. I think that would be great. Yes.
Anyway, thank you, Patsy.
Yes. No, it's true. Looking at other people's other ways of living, is unbelievably helpful. You may not choose to do the same thing, but just realizing that there isn't one path to follow. I mean, I've said before things were very different years ago. And in the 60s, when I was married and when I got married, when I got engaged, all that stuff, I had absolutely no idea that there was any alternative. Sex was what you did with a man. Intimate friendships were what you had with a man, although I know that that's not general, but that's all I knew. That's partly coming from a working class background with not as much broad reading as there might have been. So I didn't know that there was anything else. Um, but as you get older and you read more and as you get to expand in mentally and in every way, really, you've got a better chance, I think. Yeah, I think that's all really.
Patsy, I think it's hugely it's a vast topic. It's
Mhm.
hugely complex. It affects lots of people, not just alcohol, other addictions, social behaviors, things that we've learned, trauma we carry, and there's no simple answer. There's no way to fix other people. It's
Yeah,
often hard enough to, as you explain, once you're caught up in something, to change oneself can seem impossible.
yeah,
And But in general, there's an element of us as a society becoming more aware of our behaviors and the things that can
mm,
change and affect them. And I sort of my hope lies in and Graham's example, one family in South Africa. How would you go in there
mm,
and sort out a situation where there's been a homicide, for heaven's sake? It,
Black skin and white skin.
I can't imagine. Uh, uh,
yeah,
I can. It's a horrendous story, Graham, and I can see that you have a personal connection to that. And I think of all the other ones. There's a situation in my family at some distance of somebody who I care about who uh, escaped two marriages to alcoholics, only to become the alcoholic in a third marriage.
mm,
And
mm,
what I don't feel I have any leverage beyond acceptance and open caring. But
mm, mm.
6 billions of us on the planet and all got our challenges, and what you have shared is very open and honest and helpful because of that. It's this element of honesty, self-reflection, learning that maybe helps us move forward and do things better.
Yes, it's the caring, people. knowing that people care about you, whatever you do, that is pretty important, you know.
Yeah. There's a book about Scott Peck's work with communities called The Power of Acceptance. And I think you're making that very, very clear, that accepting others can be the starting point for healing process, accepting yourself too.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, friends, any questions and comments to Patsy, please? Nope. Okay. Next week.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Hattie. Do
Can I
carry
just
on.
make a small observation?
Yes, do.
It seems that the hospital sort of mode of interacting with patients at the moment is to be guided by the word leap, LEAP, and the guidance is listen, empathize, agree, which could be accept, and P is plan, what to do and where to go. And apparently this has been, in Southmead I'm speaking, it has been quite a successful way of having good interactions between doctors and nurses and patients to have this kind of guideline. So there you go.
Good model.
Very good. Thank you. Right. Next week, we shall be seeing Graham, who we see today, and Claire Pickard Cambridge. Lessons from American Quakers in the time of Trump.
Good.
With what is going around today, I think it couldn't be more topical if it tried.
Yeah, could be very useful.
I have to go. Sorry.
We all have to
very,
go.
very illuminating. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We're finishing, Marion. Yeah, good.
We're all drifting off together.
Thanks, Patsy. That was really appreciated.
Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Ray. Thanks, Patsy. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Patsy. That was amazing.
Thank you.